what is the problem that we're trying to solve? And then, I'm sorry, it says here, continue. And then we're going to talk about some of the solutions, which are special needs trust, able accounts, all these sorts of things. Nothing I say right now is necessarily specific legal advice for you, but obviously ask any questions. I'll answer whatever I can at the end, and I'll stay as long as you'd like to answer as many questions as I can. And obviously you can contact me later if you'd like. So thank you to the Center for Exceptional Families for doing this. I really appreciate it. Just a quick little thing to let you see. This is this is what's important for me. The little guy there is our 11-year-old son. He has some special needs of his own, and that's kind of what led me into this area of law. He's had TEFRA and Medicaid issues off and on, and I started doing some planning for him, and that's what led me into trying to investigate special needs trust, able accounts, and trying to figure out how all this works. And as it turns out, from a legal perspective, it's a bit complicated, but the good news is we can kind of sort through it and make sense of it. I also put his dog Bruce there. I don't know why. Bruce goes wherever Grady goes, so I felt like I had to put him on the video, on the slideshow. So the title here, bear with me, Special Needs Trust, Able Accounts, and Other Planning Tips for Your Children. This is my son, and this is what he's got to say about that. He's not very interested in it, but as us parents, when we see these guys and girls every day, it interests us. So kind of dive in. There are 3 things that every special needs family should consider. And tonight, we're really only going to spend time on one of them, but I'm going to briefly just kind of outline the 3 things that I talk about every time I go around to schools or meetings at schools, all these sorts of things. Are the 3 legs of the stool, so to speak, that you ought to think about. Grady there, it's holding up a sign that says 18. 18 is also the age where we have to think about it. So in terms of special needs planning, there's really 2 sets of rules or 2 sets of laws. There's before 18 and after 18. And while the child physically, mentally, developmentally may not change much just because they reach 18, in the eyes of the law, lots of things change. So that's kind of the key age. And I really urge parents, especially as we get into that 17th birthday, that's when we really ought to take some time and start thinking through some of these issues. So let's quickly set the stage. 3 topics that we all have to think about for any of our special needs loved ones. And by the way, I'm mentioning children normally in this because mine is 11 years old. But this is, special needs can run a gamut of ages. I have special needs clients that are well in their adult years. So it really applies to everyone, even though I will use the term children a lot. So the first thing we have to think about just briefly is decision making, right? So when your child is under 18, they're really treated just like any other child. But when they turn 18, in the eyes of the law, that child's now an adult, good, bad, or indifferent. And that's something we have to really think about. Is the child in a position to make the decisions they should make? Can they be taken advantage of quite easily? Can they make their own healthcare decisions? It's a real big one. It's a real big one we have to pay attention to. So how do we help them with that? Some children can sign a power of attorney, maybe some can do a guardianship. And this whole topic's beyond the scope of our presentation tonight. But I think it's important to understand that 18 is a critical age for decision making. It's just a little example of what Grady would do if he had to make the decisions. And that's him. If I left it all to him, we'd be going to Disney World once a week. That's a little candor there, but the point is, are they in a position to decide healthcare money decisions for themselves? Second quick topic is coordination of benefits. And I'm not going to spend long on this. Just be aware the rules will change. So my son's on TEFRA. That's a great program for obtaining Medicaid, but that will end when he's 18 just because he's 18. Same thing with SSI. Some of our children on this call or beneficiaries on this call may be getting SSI today, or maybe they don't qualify today, but that child would qualify when they turn 18 with really no change. Again, it all goes back to that 18th birthday, and the rules will change considerably. So again, we just want to coordinate that, aiming for that age, and make sure that we're on a path to go where we want to go with this. What we are here to talk about tonight is planning for the long term. And I got Bruce the dog back on here. You can see he's a pretty relaxed dog. He's really not concerned about much. He's just going to go from meal to meal, and he's living a pretty good life. As parents, we're not always quite like that. We've got some concerns for our children, and how can we plan for them over the long term? I'm in my early 40s, even though I look quite a bit older than that. My son's 11. I'm not going to be here forever. So how can I lay out something to take care of him in the long term? And that's the real issue we're going to try to address this evening. So, and by the way, I'm kind of talking fast. So if there are any questions, just let me know. I'm going to just kind of let Rhonda help me through that part because I can't see much at this point. So before we really talk about the solutions, let's just really dive into the problem and understand the problem so we know what we're trying to deal with, right? So I'll pull this up real quick. So most of our children, or even adults who are disabled, are going to rely on two government programs to help them for the remainder of their life. The first one is, we commonly call it SSI, Supplemental Security Income. And this is just a monthly cash benefit. This is kind of like income, to replace income for those that can't work or can't work enough to take care of themselves. So that SSI is very important. It's very important to the families to help support them. It's very important to the disabled child, because it is in many instances their only mode of income or their primary mode of income. And it can also be of real importance to children today. Some families will qualify for SSI even when the children are under 18. So that's very important. And then the second program, and arguably the most important, is Medicaid. So Medicaid is a health payment program. It is not health insurance. It is a health payment program, those who meet certain income and resource criteria. And we'll get a little bit more into the weeds of that in a second, but I think we have to understand Medicaid, keeping our children eligible for Medicaid as they go into adulthood, that is kind of the backdrop of all this, right? We want to be able to provide for them and maintain Medicaid because it is so important. In many cases, it's the only way they're really going to get medical care. In today's world, you can stay on on a parent's health care plan up to maybe age 26 in some circumstances, but even then, it's not going to cover everything these children need. And when they get beyond age 26, traditional health insurance isn't an option for them. So that's why these two things are so important. They are means tested. We'll get more of that in a minute. And I've kind of already hit on this, but why is Medicaid so important? I'll go over it again. Again, it's the only way they're going to have medical care. My son has some unique medical needs. Many of our other children will. And the only way they're ever going to get the care is through Medicaid. So we want to pay quick attention to that. SSI, this is, if you're going to learn anything tonight, just learn this one thing. And I hope you stay around the rest of the time, but this is so important. So SSI, again, is this monthly income to the family. But there is a link, the important link between Medicaid and SSI. If you can qualify, if the child can qualify for as much as $1 of SSI, they will automatically get Medicaid. And that is just so important, and that's what much of this planning centers around. I want to plan to provide for them and help them in such a way they can keep SSI and keep that Medicaid. Maybe they don't need all the SSI, but at least enough where we can maintain medical coverage and medical care for the child. That is so important. This is the closest thing I'll come to a joke. I'm not a real funny guy. What does a means test actually means? It means you have little financial means. So I don't want to get into the weeds of how to make people able to qualify for SSI and for Medicaid. But as you can see there, and most of us know, you can't have very much. The income is $783 a month generally. The biggest issue is generally less than $2,000 in countable resources. There are myriads of exceptions that we're not even going to go into, but that leads to the problem, right? How can I provide for my child if I can only leave them $2,000? And that's the problem, right? He obviously can't survive all the rest of his life or have the things that I want him to have if I can only leave him $2,000. At the same time, I can't just leave him everything and disqualify him for SSI, because then his Medicaid will go away. And there's the problem. So now that we've identified the problem, we're going to get all the way to the root of this session tonight, and let's identify some of the solutions. The two solutions to this that we're going to talk about tonight is a special needs trust and an ABLE account. If we were actually physically here, I'd ask people to raise their hand to see how many people even know what an ABLE account is. It's relatively new, and as it turns out, it's very, very important. We're going to spend quite a bit of time talking about special needs trust as well, but pay attention to the ABLE account as well. It may be that it is a great solution for some of your family's needs. So a special needs trust. Well, that raises the obvious question, what is a trust? So let me just kind of explain this real quick. Trust is a three-party agreement. In legal parlance, we call it a grantor. It's really a parent or a grandparent. They give assets to the trustee. This trustee holds the assets, and this trustee has certain fiduciary duties. So basically, while we're going to give these assets to the trustee, it doesn't mean they can run off to the Cayman Islands or go do whatever they want to go do. They have to hold and manage the assets for the benefit of the child. Okay, and that's the key. That's just a classic example of a trust, a three-party agreement where the parent gives something to the trustee who holds it for the benefit of the child. Notice, we do not give the assets directly to the child, and that's the key, right? So go back to my son. I can't give him more than $2,000 or leave more than $2,000 for him generally, but I can place assets, money, even things that aren't money, houses, cars, anything really, with that trustee to use for his benefit. Now, generally speaking, that's not counted as a countable resource for the child. He can still qualify for SSI, and he still has an all-important link to Medicaid. And that is one of the solutions to the problem, and it is the classic solution, the special needs trust, which you hear about. Sometimes called a supplemental needs trust. It's really the same thing. I just put a big X there. I just proved the point. I mean, we're not going to give anything directly to the child. We're not going to title it in their name. We're not going to deed a house to them. We're not going to deed land to them. We're going to put everything with this trustee who has to manage those assets in a very specific way. And there's a very high standard of care for how that has to be done. So again, sometimes called a special supplemental needs trust. This is just some of the basics of a special needs trust, but you can see here distributions are made for the benefit of the child, and this is real important. The beneficiary of the child has absolutely no discretion over distribution. So my son can never go demand payment. He can't go demand a trip to Disney World. He can't demand anything. He has absolutely no discretion over it whatsoever. And as you can see, that makes having a proper trustee very, very important. That trustee is in control, quite literally, of everything that I left for my son. So having the proper person is very, very important. And anytime we sit down and work through this and develop one of these for a family, which, by the way, is done as an estate plan overall. I mean, we don't just create special needs trust in a vacuum. That's at the same time you would have a will and all the rest of your estate planning documents prepared. But having that conversation about who the proper trustee is very important. Um, it, as you can see here. So a trustee who doesn't necessarily know what they're doing can cause a lot of problems, and maybe even more problems than there would have been if there wasn't a trust at all. And most importantly, if they don't know what they're doing, they can cause a suspension of benefits, which goes right back to that suspension in Medicaid, which is not a good thing. So who can be a good trustee? Good trustees can do a lot of things, and I think the point here is a good trustee can increase the quality of life for our loved ones after we're gone for long periods of time. When these things are managed correctly, they can will essentially extend for the beneficiary's lifetime. And so there's a lot of responsibility with a good trustee, but also a lot of benefit and a lot of positives if they handle it right. So the question often comes up, is a family member a good trustee? And the answer is it just depends, right? Family members have to be able to say no. They need to be able to either invest the funds or more likely know someone to delegate that duty to, such as a bank trust department or something like that. So family members can be there. Family members typically won't charge a fee to serve as trustee. On the flip side of it, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And there's a time and place when a family member may be a good trustee, and there's time and places when they really probably shouldn't be, although they will remain involved in that person's life and communicate with who does end up being the trustee. Is a professional trustee a good option? As a professional, I often tend to lean this way because these are people who do this for a living. They know the regulations. They know how to invest things properly. And they generally are aware of the regulations as they change, and they change frequently. That professional trustee will still need guidance from a family member, and many times that's where that family member's role is really going to come into be. Maybe they don't need to be the trustee per se, but they are that communicator, that dialogue vehicle between the special needs beneficiary and the actual trustee. The challenge with that can be finding a professional trustee who will actually take a special needs trust. There are many parts of the country where you have to have at least bare minimum $1 million in a special needs trust for a professional trustee to take it. Fortunately, in Arkansas, there are still a number of smaller institutions, or more of a rural state, and there are trustees who will take special needs trust of really any size. You just got to be introduced to them and kind of talk through it a little bit. So we're lucky. We're blessed in Arkansas, at least. There are still trust departments who will manage these and do a good job of it. So that's a good thing. Just a real quick, I just throw this out there real quick. You may have heard of it. It is a good option for some folks. What's a pooled trust? A pooled trust is just one large special needs trust where the various beneficiaries can have their own sub-account. You tend to see these more if there's relatively modest amounts of money, or maybe we just can't find someone to serve as trustee. Kind of like going back to the previous slide, that's not as much a problem in Arkansas because we can typically find people who will do it if we look around. These are options. They have their benefits. They're easy to get into, so the upfront cost is quite a bit less. So there's none of these domiciled in Arkansas today. They are an option available to anyone who wanted to look at it, and I consider them. So I just kind of put that out there, but the concept's still the same. It is still a special needs trust. So again, just kind of in review, before I move on to ABLE accounts, a special needs trust is just a three-party agreement where instead of parent or grandparent giving something directly to the beneficiary or titling it in their name, thereby resulting in a suspension of benefits, namely Medicaid. In this case, they'll hand it to the trustee to manage for that person's benefit, so they can preserve their government benefits that they need moving forward. And also, it'll be there's protection from creditors, there's protection from judgment debts. There's lots of benefits to special needs trust other than just the obvious maintaining of SSI and Medicaid. You are also preserving those assets long term in a way that you normally can't otherwise. So lots of benefits to it, for sure. The other tool or solution that I want to talk about with you tonight, it's very important for many of us, is a thing called an ABLE account. So this was, ABLE is Achieving a Better Life Experience. It's actually a tax law from just a few years ago. And what it does, I'm somewhat excited about it by my all caps there. It allows me to open an account and save up to $100,000 and maintain SSI. That is a big deal for lots of people. How many times I've had people pull me aside and tell me about this coffee can with money buried in the backyard, or a grandma or an aunt has some money in a savings account and everybody just kind of wink knows that's really for the special needs child, or maybe there's just something under a mattress, whatever. That whole paradigm that many people were in is now just absolutely not necessary. You can open these accounts in Arkansas. You can open, even if you're in Arkansas, you can open them in other states, and sometimes that's a good thing, and begin saving money almost immediately. You can put up to $15,000 in any given year in. They're professionally invested. The interest within it, the earnings it has within the account is tax-free. The distributions from the account are tax-free as long as they're handled correctly. And so this is a big deal. And for many folks who maybe can't fund a full-blown special needs trust, this is something to consider. This is something to talk about. And I also want to stress, this is not to the exclusion of a special needs trust. For folks who want to go that route, they really work well together, and I'll explain some more of that in a minute. Now, the other piece that I want to say real fast, notice down here where it says a beneficiary can save up to $300,000 with no impact on Medicaid. So back earlier in the presentation, I said this link is so important. If you're going to remember anything, remember that link. This is the one exception to that link, right? So I can put, it's a moving number. Right now, it's around $343,000, I think. So I'm just generally saying 300 plus. I can put a considerable amount of money in an ABLE account, and I may end up losing SSI if I go over that 100,000. And there may be a time when that's appropriate. I can still maintain Medicaid up to this 300 plus number. So this is a tremendous planning tool for everyone, and they're easy to open relatively. I offer to just do them for free because I just think that they're that important. And I really just want everyone to know about this. If you have a special needs child and you don't have an ABLE account, we really need to get one open. Just put $50 in it, anything, get it open. And that even gives family, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, whoever, this gives them, instead of giving money to the beneficiary, or my grandmother used to buy savings bonds, that sort of thing. Well, you can't do that for these children, but I can put money in an ABLE account every year at Christmas, birthday, whatever. So it's a very important tool. I'm saying it is a game changer. It changes the way we do planning. Relatively easy. They're invested professionally. I've said most of this. The earnings are tax-free. It's the last thing we haven't talked about, and it is important. So earlier I said that an ABLE account and a special needs trust really should work together. They're not mutually exclusive. So let me just kind of run you through a real quick scenario to show how that works. A special needs trust can pay for my son's housing and utilities, okay? Pay him directly, not give the money to him. But say if he moves into an apartment, it can pay the rent, it can do those things. However, it will result in a 1/3 reduction of the SSI. Not an elimination of SSI, but his SSI payment will be reduced by 1/3. because that special needs trust pays his rent. Okay. However, an ABLE account can pay for housing. So I have money in a special needs trust that goes to an ABLE account. An ABLE account pays the rent, and now his SSI is fully restored. So just by utilizing a couple of tools in conjunction, I just gave my son a 33% raise forever, or as long as those rules last. So you can see these are just tremendous tools, and every family that has a special needs trust needs to have an ABLE account to work in conjunction with it. And even those families that don't want to go the special needs trust route should still consider having one, just for many, many reasons. Now, the only real notable drawback is that they have to hold cash. Special needs trust can hold real property and vehicles and those sorts of things, where an ABLE account cannot. So again, you can see the interplay there. Maybe you have a special needs trust that just owns a home, or real property, or a car, and the majority of the liquid funds are held in an ABLE account. I think you can see this can play out many different ways. But ultimately, these are the solutions to the problem that we talked about all the way back at the beginning of this. So how can I provide for my child if I can only give them $2,000? Well, I can utilize a special needs trust to hold funds. I can utilize ABLE accounts to hold funds. And while I can't leave anything directly to him, I can leave things that will benefit him long after I'm gone. I pray. So I'll do this slide in just it's not necessarily on point, but since we've got some people together, I just want to hit this real fast because I run into this quite often or frequently. So what if a child or anyone on SSI, we take child out, what if anyone on SSI or Medicaid actually ends up with some money? They inherit something, they're involved in a car wreck and get a settlement, whatever. You can see this. Often I hear this all the time. We got to spend down. We got to spend down. We got to spend it all before the end of the month. We got to, there's panic. I'm scared. I'm going to lose my SSI. I'm going to lose my Medicaid. I got to go buy a bunch of plasma TVs real quick or something. Do not do that. Do not do that. There are solutions that, not always, but many, many times, there are solutions on how to preserve that money for your child over the longer term. And that's just one of those things. Reach out, make a call before we go spend down. Just be aware that there are solutions that are out there. And I just hate that when I hear about people who've had to spend down something that really could have been set aside for the child over the long run. Let's not do that. And with that, I'll be happy to open up for questions, or if anybody would like to call me or send me an email, I'd be happy to help out. And that's really all my presentation. Ron, I'm going to try to figure out how to get out of this so you guys can see what's going on.
Okay. We do have one question, and if anybody has questions, if y'all just want to type it in the box, and then I will read them to Thomas. The question is, what are distributions on ABLE accounts? Is it better than a CD?
Yeah, so distributions better than a CD. I wonder if we mean is the interest rates better than a CD? And whoever did that, please just feel free to clarify. But so let me just kind of explain how it works. An ABLE account is in effect a 401k for your child. So if any of you have 401ks and maybe you pick an aggressive model or a moderate model or those sorts of things, you can pick it. And some states will allow lots of control over the investments. Other states will kind of allow less, but ultimately you have some level of control over that, and it's really just going to depend on your risk tolerance. Now, to answer the question about distributions per se, distributions from an ABLE account just have to be used for I don't remember the magic term, a qualified disability need or something along those lines. It's pretty broad. You can't just use it for everything, and you can't use it to go pay your own bills. but generally it can be used to benefit, you know, the disabled child. So it's quite broad. You can do more things with an ABLE account than you can a special needs trust. It's just limited. The only real downside to an ABLE account is limited in how much it can hold and what types of property it can hold.
Okay, and she did say yes, are the interest rates of a CD versus the ABLE account. So
Yeah.
that is what she meant.
Yeah. Again, I put it more along the lines of investing in a 401k or something like that. That's really kind of how it works.
Okay, Shelby, did that answer your question? Okay. Anybody else have any questions? I can't see. Oh. Hold on, I think we have another question. Hold on just a minute.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm doing this. It says, "Is my child is 10 years old? Would it be wise to open an ABLE account?" Absolutely.
Oh, see, I didn't even see that question.
Yeah, I don't know how it just popped up on my screen. Yeah, no question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, anybody, in my view, anybody who has a special needs child, anybody who's on this call, if you've got a child, you should have an ABLE account open for them. There's really no downside, and it's just a great tool. And kind of like what I said earlier, you know, when sometimes you just kind of stumble across some money you didn't know was coming. Well, one of the quick solutions, if the child is under 26, is to dump it off in an ABLE account. So, if anything, just gives you a vehicle to take care of that sort of thing.
Okay. Have you worked with anyone with SSDI? They receive a bit more than regular SSI.
Exactly. So, it's really two different things, right? So there's SSI is supplemental security income, and that is, how to explain it? So again, that's the means tested thing. You don't have to have ever worked. You don't have to earn SSI. It's an entitlement. Okay, if you meet the eligibility for being a citizen and all this sort of thing, and you meet the medical criteria, it means you're medically, there's a reason you're not working, and your income is below a certain point, you will qualify. SSDI is Social Security Disability Insurance. It's a different thing. It is quite a bit more, can be quite a bit more than SSI. And that's something that you earn over time. So as you're working and you're contributing towards traditional Social Security, you are earning SSDI, and it is quite a bit more. It's not based on your incomes per se. What you can get out of that is going to depend on what you contributed, just like Social Security. The nice thing about SSDI, and we'd really like to have that when we can, if you're on SSDI for 24 months, you automatically qualify for Medicare as opposed to Medicaid. And that is a tremendous benefit. So we always want to try to work, if there's a way to get SSDI and work that in, that's going to be for older people who have spent some time in the workforce too.
It looks like someone asked, why does the age 26 matter with ABLE accounts?
Great question. Fantastic question. So the real qualifier for an ABLE account, the age of onset for the disability had to be prior to age 26. The beneficiary can be older than that. It can be even in their 40s, 50s, however, but the age of onset had to be prior than age 26. And frankly, I'm not real sure why. It's in the statute. I actually wrote a lengthy paper about why that might be unconstitutional one time and didn't really get very far with it. But that is the rule as it is today. I hope that they change it someday. But generally speaking, that's the first thing to look at. What is the age of the child? If the child's under 26 today, it's obviously not an issue. If the child's over 26, then we have to do a little work to prove that there was some sort of diagnosis prior to that age.
Okay, we have another question. question. Can persons living in a residential facility have an ABLE account? If so, who is responsible for setting that up, the facility or the guardian?
Great. Fantastic. Yes, they can. Anybody who is disabled prior to the age of 26 can get an ABLE account, regardless of where they live. And it would be the guardian that would apply for that. And that'll be the guardian that generally is the one who's going to make the, make the withdrawals, distributions, that sort of thing. I want to throw one other thing out there that's kind of cool about these. Depending on where you open the ABLE account at, they'll actually come now. Some of them will come with a card. It's a lot like a Visa or MasterCard. I don't know if any of you have like a flexible health spending plan where you can go to the pharmacist and just swipe the card. This will do the same thing. So you can have money in an ABLE account and, have some money loaded on this card, and it should, in theory, only let you make purchases that are, eligible under the ABLE account rules, and just makes access to the money really easy. It's a really nice, convenient tool. I know that's not what you asked, but I had to share it.
Okay, are there any other requirements to get an ABLE account?
I mean, you have to be disabled. That's really it. If your child is already getting Medicaid, SSI, anything like that, on Tefra, then you're automatic. That's a slam dunk. You're going to be considered disabled. And really, the bar is not terribly high. If you're not getting SSI, Medicaid, or you're not on Tefra, I think you can just get a note from a doctor generally. Each state does it a little bit different, but again, I'll help anybody open an ABLE account. Just if you feel like that's what you need to do, give me a call and we'll work on helping you get one open.
Okay, we've got a couple more. Let me get back up here. Regarding the stimulus money coming from COVID-19, could that money be used to start ABLE accounts for residents?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And generally, because I had this question earlier in the week from someone else, generally it will not be counted as a resource to knock you off SSI. So hopefully I know some folks had a little concern about that. It was going to put them over the limit, at least for some period of time. That doesn't look like that's going to be the case, so that's a good thing.
Okay. I have a parent who was on disability and the person passed away. The disabled child received SSDI instead of SSI, which increased their income. Have you experienced anyone who has had this?
Yeah, that can happen. The rules of who will get SSDI when and for how long can be pretty complicated. Yeah, if the parent passes away first, they may well get that, and I think that's a good thing. SSDI generally is preferable to SSI, and it's because it's just going to be more. So yeah, we have experienced that. The issue there obviously is how do you maintain Medicaid coverage moving forward, and that's going to just be kind of a one-off. I'm not sure who asked that. I'd be happy to help you work through it, but that's going to be kind of a one-off situation per family how to navigate that.
Okay. And then someone said that was my question. What sort of documentation is needed to open an ABLE account?
Yeah, not much.
Okay. Okay, back to the COVID money, or can the stimulus money be used to open an ABLE account for a person not living in a facility?
Oh yeah, be very clear. ABLE accounts can be open for anyone. Living in a facility is not a requirement at all. All that's required is that they're deemed to be disabled, and they were deemed to be disabled prior to age 26. That's it.
Can SSI be deposited directly into an ABLE account?
I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do a direct deposit from an SSI into an ABLE account. I'm not going to say it can't happen. I'm not sure how to do that. Obviously, you can use the money. I mean, when you get the check or you get in your account, you can move it over. But how to get it directly in there, I'm not sure.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Lisa said, great information. Thank you, Thomas. Okay, The adult disabled person has a legal guardian who has to keep records of expenses, which may be subject to legal review. How do we document that ABLE account?
Yeah, so yeah, great point. So often a guardian will need to do an annual accounting depending on the circumstances. And, I think all you would do is as you prepare your annual accounting, um, you just notice whatever amount of money that went into the ABLE account. As long as it's less than $15,000 in any given year, it shouldn't be a problem. Um, so yeah, great point. You do have to document if you're a guardian, you're doing your accounting, you have to document. But I think it's just a line item on the court accounting records.
Okay. And I guess you put your contact information up. Was that on the
Yeah, it was on the final
or
slide.
do you want to give them your email address or your phone number? So
Sure, yeah, yeah, absolutely. It was on that final slide, and I'll, Ron, I mean, well, I don't know if I can email this whole slideshow to you or not, but maybe a little big, but I could get it to you somehow. But
okay.
my phone number is 501-249-2600, and my email is thomas@smithlawfirmar.com, and I have one website that's just dedicated to special needs planning. Anybody's welcome to look at it. Like it's arspecialneedsplanners.com. It's not my primary firm website, but it's just a site just dedicated to this. You can check that out.
Okay, we did have another question. Shelby said, awesome presentation. What is the specific ruling about the stimulus money not affecting the SSI payout?
Yeah, I don't think that it does. I've done some research, like I said earlier, for another family that was kind of running into that issue. I don't think that the stimulus money will affect your SSI at all. It's just kind of a one-time thing. I've read some guidance from the Social Security Administration that's still, I mean, I'm not going to lie, there's still a little bit of gray out there, but it seemed very clear to me where I'm not particularly concerned about it personally. I haven't seen anything, either the unemployment payments, that they're making to some folks, and the one-time stimulus money that comes out. I don't think any of that is going to affect your SSI. Now, I would still report it when you do your, most folks do a quarterly or an annually report. I would report it, but it should not affect it.
Okay. If we don't have any more questions, I guess we will wrap this up. Thank you so much, Thomas. This was some great information. And it seems like a lot of questions about the stimulus and all of that right now. So a great time to have this. I want to thank all of the attendees for joining. Be sure to like our Facebook page if you haven't already. We're going to be having lots of webinars in the future, so y'all be sure and sign up for them. Thank y'all for coming.
Thank you very much.
Okay. That was you did so good.
I get tongue-tied sometimes.
Oh, no.
Not
I
the
do
greatest.
all the time.
I'm not the greatest presenter in the world.
We're gonna allow Shelby to talk.
Yeah. And it's a bit dry material. I mean, at some point, I did this for my wife. She was looking at me like, trying to teach a law class? What are you doing?
It's so, what you're sharing, Thomas, is so timely right now for our people, because all of my questions are stimulus related, and it does make me nervous, even though not really for my son, because up until tonight I was just going to squirrel away his $1,200 in a or whatever he gets. I don't know what the amount is going to be, but just put that in his CD. It's what I was going to do. Just put it in a CD and leave it there. But maybe instead I'll open an ABLE account for him. And then when that CD comes and matures in the summer, I might move that over into an ABLE account and focus on that. Now, my question for you, the interest rate for an ABLE account, is it kind of held like the stock market, where I've got all my money invested with Edward Jones, and then these really qualified people who are a lot smarter than me decide how that money should be invested? Is it similar to that?
It is. It is. That doesn't always, as obviously life experience will teach us, it doesn't mean they always know much more about investing than we do.
That's true.
But
Yeah.
that is, no, you're exactly right. And I'm just tongue in cheek. I've got some good friends who do this. You're exactly right. And some states will allow you to go all the way down and invest in like bond funds, those sorts of things, which are very conservative,
Mhm.
or you can just hold it in cash too. Most will allow you to just simply put the money in the Able account and it just sits there as cash, where it's not subject to the fluctuations of the market. So some of that will really just going to depend on your appetite for risk, I guess.
Oh yes, I know. Yes,
But
and yeah.
generally speaking, though, an Able account is doing any sort of investing at all should be to CD. I mean, unless there's a pandemic. I mean, that change. This is the asterisk next to everything, I guess. But
Yeah.
speaking,
Well,
it should far
it's
outperform a CD.
I mean, you're talking about interest rate on a CD 1 to 2%.
Yeah.
That's nothing. I mean, he might make $20 a year on that if he's lucky.
Well, I mean, the rate of inflation is 3+, so you're not even keeping up with that.
Sure. So I'm not worried at